What happens when the individual meant to guide and protect becomes the very source of unimaginable harm? Today, we unravel a story so haunting and so heartbreaking. This is the tragic tale of Pari, a 15-year-old girl filled with dreams, ambition, and innocence, whose life was brutally stolen by someone her family held in the highest regard, her own tutor. A person meant to protect and nurture her, but who betrayed her in the most chilling manner. This is a story of love twisted into obsession, of betrayal so deep it led to unspeakable tragedy, and a cautionary tale of how blind trust can sometimes hide the darkest secrets. Kota, famously known as the coaching capital of India, is a city where countless young minds gather with hopes of crafting a bright future. It's a place where dreams are nurtured, where students burn the midnight oil to achieve success. But on February 13th, 2022, this city of aspirations became the backdrop for a chilling nightmare. Among the many students striving for academic excellence was 15-year-old Pari, a bright and determined 9th grader. With her sights set firmly on excelling in her studies, Pari was diligently preparing for her upcoming exams. Supporting her in this journey was her trusted tutor, Gaurav, a man her family believed to be a dedicated and reliable guide. Gaurav seemed genuinely committed to Pari's success, offering not just academic help, but the assurance of a mentor. Pari had taken a day off from school and extra classes to attend a wedding with her parents. However, Gaurav, her tutor since 2019, called Pari's father, insisting she attend an extra session to prepare for her upcoming exams. Trusting the teacher, Pari's father agreed to send her, intending to leave for the wedding as a family once she returned. When Pari didn't return home after what should have been a routine 2-hour tuition session, her father's concern began to grow. At first, he hoped she might have been delayed, perhaps lingering over her studies or chatting with her tutor. But as time stretched on, his unease turned into fear. Unable to shake off the ominous feeling, he decided to head to the tuition center himself to check on her. When he arrived, the sight before him sent a chill down his spine. Outside the locked door of the tuition center lay Pari's sandals, neatly placed as though she had just stepped inside. But the locked door and eerie silence that followed betrayed the normalcy he desperately hoped for. Frantically knocking and calling her name yielded no response. His mind raced with troubling thoughts. Why was the center locked, and where was his daughter? Desperate for answers, he turned to Gaurav's family, who lived nearby. But even as he knocked on their door and asked for help, unease continued to grow. The lack of immediate answers and the mounting suspicion clouded the air, foreshadowing the devastating truth that awaited him. When Pari's father arrived at Gaurav's house, desperation etched on his face. It was Gaurav's mother who attended to him. Sensing his growing panic and concern, she listened intently as he explained that Pari hadn't returned home and was last seen heading to the tuition center. After a brief exchange, they decided to check the tuition center together. Fear and unease filled the air as they made their way to the small room where Gaurav conducted his lessons. The decision to unlock the door wasn't easy, but with every passing second, the need to know what lay behind it grew more urgent. They approached the center with trepidation, the weight of unspoken fears looming heavily between them. With each turn of the key, a heavy silence hung in the air. As the door creaked open, the reality inside was too much to bear, a sight that would haunt them forever. Pari's lifeless body hung from the ceiling, her hands and feet cruelly bound, a silent testament to the unimaginable cruelty she had endured. Her father's anguished cries filled the air, shattering the eerie silence of the room. Gaurav's mother stood paralyzed with shock and disbelief, unable to process the horror unfolding before her. The scene was both devastating and chilling, marking the end of innocence for a family and a community, leaving behind scars that would never heal. Initially, local police suspected the case to be a suicide, given the circumstances in which Pari's body was discovered. However, upon closer examination, critical evidence began to unravel a much darker narrative. Distinct marks on Pari's neck, consistent with strangulation, coupled with visible signs of physical torture, made it evident that she had endured a violent struggle before her death. The sheer brutality of the crime left even the most seasoned officers shaken to their core. This wasn't just a case of murder. It was a horrifying descent into cruelty and inhumanity. As investigators examined Pari's lifeless body, they discovered the grim evidence of her final moments. Evidence that painted a chilling picture of the unimaginable suffering she had endured. Burn marks scattered across her fragile body revealed a pattern of deliberate, calculated torment. These weren't mere injuries. They were cruel imprints of the pain inflicted upon her in her last hours. Each mark told a story of violence and unthinkable agony, hinting at the monstrous acts committed by someone who should have been a protector, not a predator. News of the brutal crime spread like wildfire, leading to widespread public outrage. In Kota, protests erupted on the streets, with people from all walks of life rallying against the heinous act and urging authorities to expedite the investigation. The growing unrest underscored the community's resolve to ensure that the perpetrators of such a horrific crime would face the full force of the law. For days, the hunt for Gaurav consumed the police force, their determination fueled by the need for justice for young Pari. He had seemingly disappeared into thin air, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and unanswered questions. Teams combed through every possible lead, tracing his connections, monitoring his movements, and questioning anyone who might have seen or spoken to him. People in Kota joined the protests after the police failed to capture Gaurav Jain, despite publicly promising to find him within 3 days. Pari was murdered on February 13th, yet by February 18th, Gaurav was still on the run. The lack of progress angered the public, leading to demonstrations in Rampura, the locality where Pari lived with her family. Local shopkeepers closed their stores in solidarity, and schools, colleges, institutes, and coaching centres. The protests intensified with demands for Gaurav's immediate capture. Despite the growing unrest, the police still had no concrete information about Gaurav's whereabouts or even if he was alive. To incentivize tips, they announced a reward of around $100 for any information. Meanwhile, traders and institutions in the area rallied behind Pari's family, collectively offering an additional reward of approximately $5,000 for information leading to Gaurav's location. As the case gained national attention, it became high profile. In response, the police formed 30 special teams, comprising approximately 300 officers, to track down Gaurav. Rajasthan police also obtained contact details of all the individuals Gaurav had been in touch with, provided by his parents. Among these was his sister, who lived in Gurugram, Haryana, 269 miles away from Kota. Believing that Gaurav might visit her, the police stationed a plainclothes team outside her house around the clock. The police also interrogated Gaurav's friends, who revealed that he had harbored one-sided feelings for Pari. When she rejected his romantic advances, they speculated he likely killed her out of anger and frustration. Cyber experts traced Gaurav's phone, which was found in a river, leading to suspicions that he might have committed suicide to avoid punishment. The police even examined unidentified bodies in the area, but found no evidence of Gaurav's death. The breakthrough finally came 8 days after the crime. Gaurav was found hiding outside his sister's house, a man who had run out of places to escape. His capture brought both relief and dread. Relief for a community desperate for answers and justice, and dread for what his confession might reveal. In custody, the truth unraveled, exposing the depths of his disturbed and twisted mind. Gaurav admitted to the crime, detailing how his infatuation with Pari had spiraled into a deadly obsession. Gaurav's obsession with Pari wasn't sudden. It had been festering for years. As her tutor, he crossed the boundaries of professionalism, masking his fixation with a facade of guidance and care. But when Pari, with the innocence of her age, rejected his inappropriate advances, it wounded his ego deeply. What should have ended there spiraled into a horrifying vendetta. Consumed by his twisted emotions, Gaurav began meticulously planning her murder. Inspired by crime films and fueled by a warped sense of vengeance, he left nothing to chance. He studied patterns, devised alibis, and even practiced ways to avoid being identified. In a bizarre attempt to outwit authorities, he rehearsed disguising himself as a woman, believing it would help him evade capture. Gaurav left the police stunned by the elaborate planning and effort he had invested in the crime. Having tutored Pari since 2019, he had developed an obsessive and inappropriate infatuation with her. By February 2022, Gaurav resolved to propose to her before Valentine's Day. However, he also decided that if she rejected him, he would take her life. Learning that Pari's family would be attending a wedding in early February, Gaurav saw this as the ideal opportunity to execute his plan. Starting on February 8th, he meticulously crafted every detail of both the murder and his escape. To refine his method, he watched crime films and shows, particularly focusing on movie where the protagonist strangles someone to death. He became fixated on this scene, watching it repeatedly to rehearse his approach. To evade capture, Gaurav sought ways to confuse the police. He turned to YouTube, where he discovered a transformation video of a boy turning into a girl. Inspired, he purchased makeup kits, wigs, and women's clothing, and diligently practiced applying makeup, walking, and behaving like a woman to perfect his disguise. Gaurav also carefully calculated how much time it would take for Pari's body to be discovered and synchronized his escape plans accordingly. He planned to flee Kota immediately after the murder. To cover his tracks, he booked a train ticket under his real name and a bus ticket under the alias Meenakshi. The train offered a quicker escape, but he kept the bus as a contingency plan in case the police started monitoring railway stations first. On February 13, 2022, Gaurav Jain carried out his horrifying plan. Under the guise of offering extra classes, he lured Pari Jain to his tuition centre. Trusting him as her tutor, she had no idea of the danger that awaited her. Once inside, Gaurav confronted Pari and made a desperate proposal, hoping to manipulate her into accepting his advances. But Pari, steadfast in her refusal, rejected him once again. This rejection ignited a dangerous fury within Gaurav. In a fit of uncontrollable rage, he resorted to violence, strangling the young girl he was entrusted to guide. To cover up his heinous act, Gaurav meticulously staged the scene to mislead investigators. He left her body in a state designed to confuse authorities, planting false leads to divert suspicion. Believing he had outsmarted everyone, he fled the scene, leaving behind shattered lives and a community gripped by shock and sorrow. Despite Gaurav's calculated attempts to mislead the investigation, his carefully constructed facade unraveled under the relentless scrutiny of the police. His staged crime scene and false leads were no match for the determination of investigators seeking justice for Pari. When Gaurav was finally apprehended, the truth spilled out in a chilling confession. It revealed a man consumed by an unhealthy obsession, his mind twisted by unreciprocated desires. He admitted to meticulously planning every detail of the crime, believing he could erase evidence and elude capture. Yet, in the end, his obsession blinded him to the strength of law and justice. His confession exposed not just a crime, but a deeply disturbed individual willing to destroy an innocent life to feed his selfish, twisted impulses. A betrayal of trust so profound that it left an indelible scar on all who knew Pari. In a world where we rely on the people around us, friends, family, and mentors, to guide and protect us, Pari's loss is a devastating blow to all who knew her. Her life was full of potential, dreams, and promise, but that was brutally stolen by someone she trusted the most. Let this tragedy be a reminder to us all. No obsession, no matter how consuming, ever justifies taking a life. We must stay vigilant, protect those who are vulnerable, and never ignore the warning signs of unhealthy behavior. If you want to explore more intriguing narratives, mysteries, and tales of human resilience, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon to stay updated every time we post new content. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you the stories that matter. Love the content we create? Help us keep this channel alive and thriving by making a donation.